Welcome back, everybody. By the way, rep the show you love. Shop the Rod Pedersen Show store today at rodpeterson.com. Click on RP Store. That's why I'm wearing the gear. That's why I'm drinking from the mug. Ta-da! Or you can wear Expo stuff like Scott Belford in the Walk Off podcast. How you doing, Scott?
I'm doing very well, Rod. How about yourself, buddy?
I'm having a wonderful day. It's a great day to have a great day, obviously. And you're joining us to talk about baseball, but I find it incredibly fascinating that you're a stand-up comic, and we kind of got into that a little bit the last time you were on from the Walk Off podcast. What's the most annoying thing people say to you when they find out that you're a stand-up comic by trade?
Either tell me a joke or how much money do you make?
Both annoying, both incredibly annoying, one very invasive.
Yes.
How do you handle those?
Normally for tell me a joke, I just explain I don't want to, and that's not really how my comedy works, and that I'm normally a storyteller, and it's just not what they're going to be after. And for how much money I make, I normally say something like 500 million, something.
Good for you. Good for you. We'll come back around on the stand-up comic thing because again, I'm fascinated by that thing. But this is a sports show. It's also a talk show, but you're here to talk baseball, and you know that. And Alejandro Kirk hit a 2-run homer in the 4-run first inning for the Blue Jays last night on the way to a 10-4 win over the Twins. And for me, Scott, I'm sure you watched it. Like I said earlier, I like close games in the regular season, blowouts in the playoffs. It's easier on the ticker. But these
Sure.
blowouts like last night, they're just not that entertaining.
No, I agree. And I mean, the Minnesota Twins absolutely stripped down at the trade deadline. They are not a very good team. But you know what, Rod, is there's lots of bad teams in baseball. And that's where
Mm-hmm.
you kind of got to make your hay. So the Blue Jays took care of business and did what they have to do, despite maybe the entertainment factor not being there. And I will say the Twins' Joe Ryan is one of the best pitchers in all of baseball. And the fact that they were able to get to him early and put pressure on him right out of the gate does go a long way, because Joe Ryan is the type of pitcher that they're going to face in the playoffs. So to show themselves and show everyone else that they can get to those top-notch guys, it goes a long way.
Well, there's a couple things that you and I can talk about here that we have not talked about because the last time you were on, it was pre-trade deadline. And while the Jays were rocking at the time, they're still in first place. So I got two questions for you. And one is, did they do enough in your mind at the trade deadline to put them over the top? They're clearly a World Series contender, but are they a favorite now?
That's a really good question. And I still, honestly, am not sure how I answer that, because did they accomplish everything they had to? Right? Like there was a minimum checklist they had to get done. Otherwise, the trade deadline was a failure. They did check all of those boxes. Did they do enough? Well, I really feel like time is going to tell. I will say their bullpen is scuffling right now. Now, that said, the pen in baseball is one of the most versatile things in all of sport. And just because they are slumping in August does not necessarily mean that they won't have the gas in October. They have made sure that the guys that are in the pen have the stuff to get it done. Now, is it all going to come together? I still am undecided on that. And I know that their big acquisition in Louis Varland, who has that incredible knuckle curve and a big 99-mile-an-hour fastball, just hasn't really been what they were hoping. Now, has he hit a wall because of innings? Is he been overworked? Has this entire pen kind of hit a wall because of that? It feels like they have. And I think that the long man out of the bullpen has been a problem for this team all year long. They just don't have one, a guy who could come in and eat innings, right? Like, think about last night's game, Rod. Who are they going to with a 6-run lead to just finish out the game? They don't really have a guy, right? Like, they don't really have a guy to just get it done. They were going to Tommy Nance, probably using players that they would rather save for higher leverage situations. And if there is a weakness, it is probably that, which is, I think, why we saw Eric Lauer over the last weekend kind of put in that situation where he could pitch out of the pen. They didn't actually come out and say we were relegating him to the bullpen, but they definitely made sure that they were covered when it comes to having Shane Bieber come in for the first time. That worked out amazingly. When it comes to Jose Barrios struggling right now, of course, he pitched incredible on Saturday, the best he has in about a month. So they didn't wind up needing him, but there may be a situation where Eric Lauer is that guy.
While we're at it, would I tell you the Jays are hot? And somebody wrote in here a while back and said, "You're a bandwagon Blue Jays show." I'm like, yep. When they're winning, we're in. When they're not, we're going to talk about something else. Yeah, of course. And I'm not embarrassed about that. I got the things that I'm into. Get back to me when the Blue Jays are winning. And they are, but this country's on fire right now. For instance, Joe in Brandon, Manitoba writes in on the Western Dodge text line. He says, "Hey, Rod, as a Jays fan, who would you like to see them play against in the first round of the playoffs? I'm kind of hoping for the Yankees, if I'm being honest. Also, as a Bombers fan, I'm looking forward to the Sunday showdown with the Riders." I don't really want to answer that because that's so far in the distance. I feel like it's a long ways in the distance. I don't know how you feel about that.
There's 30 games left. That's a lot of baseball.
Yeah.
And a lot can go wrong. They have put themselves in an incredible situation right now. They're leading the division by 5 games, up on both the Yankees and the Red Sox, who still need to play each other another series. There are a lot of interdivisional games coming up in September, which can always mess with the way the standings are looking. But I do think the Blue Jays' main goal has to be getting that bye, not playing a wild card series against a team with 2 or 3 studs in that starting rotation that they need to get through. If they can get to the division series, they really do give themselves a chance to win, especially with the way this team has been built.
Sure. And, as I sit here and look at it, the standings are going to change so much between now and then. I'm looking at the wild card right now.
The
Royals,
wild card
Rangers,
is tight. It is a race.
That's so it would be very hard to even point out a team. Royals, Rangers, Guardians. The Jays are, statistically speaking, the second best team in the American League. So who should they be afraid of? You know what I mean? I'm sure that there's teams they match up better than others.
I think this is why Blue Jays fever has caught a hold like it has this year, is that for the first time in, I can't even remember when, this American League is up for grabs. And there isn't a team that scares me in the American League. Does Tarek Skubal and the Tigers pose a real threat? Absolutely. But after Skubal, it gets a lot thinner on the pitching side of things when it comes to the Tigers. And I don't wish to be overconfident here, but the AL Central division is pretty darn weak, and they're sort of AL Central merchants. So a lot of those wins have come against very bad teams, especially the Chicago White Sox and Minnesota Twins.
Yeah. So some of the topics that have come up since you've last been on, one is, did they do enough at the trade deadline? 2, Mark Shapiro is in contract extension talks with the Blue Jays, and he has said both sides want to get it done, but they don't have it done yet. And I'm asking you, in my opinion, but my opinion is, can we wait until they win something? I'm not sure whether they will or not. Would you, if you were Rogers, would you be signing him to a long-term extension right now, Mark Shapiro, the president, like before the season's over?
I mean, the short answer for me is no. And I have been all over the map on this front office. In 2021, 2022, I really thought that they were the guys. I thought they were building a great team. I liked the way they were going about their business. And I really was Shapiro Atkins supporter. Then it kind of hit a wall in 2023 and 2024. I was off that bandwagon. I was like, fire these guys. How many times are you going to give them an opportunity? 2025, I have been impressed with the way that they have changed the direction of their front office when it comes to player development, something that they really struggled with when it came to drafting. We're seeing the farm system looking good for the first time in a long time, which was a huge boon for this team at the trade deadline, being able to sell off some of the prospects that other teams wanted for areas of need they had on this immediate team. Huge. Something this organization hasn't really had for quite some time. I've been very impressed with the way that they have changed the direction in their hitting and their strategy and philosophy there. Bringing in David Popkins, moving guys around, it has really worked out. All that said, Rod, there are still no banners hanging from Rogers Center that we can
Yeah.
attribute to Shapiro and Atkins, and I personally would like to see that happen before an extension goes on. Is it going to? I think the deal's already been done, personally. I think Mark Shapiro makes this huge corporate conglomerate that owns the Toronto Blue Jays a ton of money, and that is really what is going to talk more so than the performance on the field. Now, I could be out in left field here, but that's how I view this situation. I think Mark Shapiro's coming back. In fact, I think it's possible Mark Shapiro even has a promotion in mind here where he's kind of heading up MLSE, and maybe there's someone else like Atkins that steps up to that president of the Blue Jays. We'll see how it all plays out. But yes, to answer your question, no, I don't think that they deserve an extension quite yet, and I would like to see how the rest of this season plays out. But just realistically speaking, yeah, I think they're back.
I'm as I said, I'm saying no, don't. But it's a chicken and the egg thing. I have not had you on this show from my winter home in Florida, but I look at the Panthers as the quintessential how you do it. They signed all their people up ahead of the extensions running out, and that was before they won the Stanley Cup, right? And everybody's happy there. All the players stayed. If you follow in free agency, some guys took less money to stay there, like Brad Marchand and Aaron Ekblad. That's a very good indication of what kind of culture you got going on. I'm just so blessed to be able to follow and cover the Florida Panthers. And I don't know enough about the Blue Jays, whether they have that or not. We all hear things. I got friends close to the organization. What I hear isn't always good. I don't know that they have that culture. I'm not sure.
It's tough to say, and it's funny because some of the things that they have said in the past that really rubbed me the wrong way are looking like it's coming to
Yeah.
fruition. Like continuity is a competitive advantage. That one I couldn't stand because I was just like, how are you going to stick with some of these guys who have only put up losses? But now we're seeing maybe the fruits of that labor a little bit. And I do think there is something to be said for a front office to be able to learn from past mistakes. I think that we have all done jobs where maybe we're not the proudest of how we originally went about it and corrected that on the way. And so maybe there is a scenario here where Mark Shapiro and Ross Atkins corrected properly and are in the right. And Rod, if that is the case and they wind up winning us a World Series, all is forgiven. I honestly, if they
Yep.
bring a championship back north of the border, I don't care about the last 10 years of failures. I am fine. Flags fly forever.
Yeah.
But
It's
give me
funny,
that
by the
flag
way.
first.
Yeah, where the heck is it? Somebody wrote in here. Oh, Glenn in Medicine Hat about the America's Team documentary of the Dallas Cowboys. He said the America's Team doc is good TV. Always interesting to hear from those who were part of the program. It reminds me of Jerry Jones buying the Cowboys in '89 and firing Tom Landry. And they say, he took all the arrows for a long time until they ended up winning Super Bowls. Now, I don't know that the Blue Jays are going to end up. That's what riddles us all with anxiety. You more than me, because I don't really care. I would like them to win. They are my baseball team, and it doesn't keep me up at night. But by the way, Rob in Vegas writes in and says, thank you, Rob, for the breaking news. Taylor and Travis announced their engagement, and I'm embarrassed that I don't need their last names. We all know. I saw it in the break. Now, so get ready for. Listen, I'm not going to talk about that now because that's all you're going to hear for 24 hours. Taylor and Travis are engaged. Bravo. I love it. And if we have time, I want to come back. Yeah, love wins. Love wins today. I want to come around and talk about your Expos hat and the Expos themselves, but I can't let you get out of here. I said I'm a stand-up comedy, not aficionado, I'm fascinated by it. I would never want to do it because I'm too scared. But I saw this list of the top 100 stand-up comics, and this is your field, so you might have seen various lists. And I was like, that's every comedian ever was on that list. No, as it turns out, there's thousands of stand-up comics. And the top 100, just to get on that list, we all know who they would be. Did I ask you who's your favorite all-time stand-up comic?
My favorite all-time stand-up, I mean, it is honestly always shifting. It's very much like if
Mm-hmm.
you're a music fan, you just kind of get sick of the same notes and listening to the same stuff. So I am always kind of changing what I'm listening to. But the guy who got me into stand-up comedy, kind of the guy I put on a pedestal, is Brian Regan. He's a guy who is just so incredibly funny with being squeaky clean, and it's a very difficult trade to do, is clean comedy. And
Yeah.
I think there's lots of places for every kind of comedy. I'm not one of those guys who's just like, oh, if you say the F word, you're taking the easy way. I do not feel that way at all. In fact, if you think being dirty is so easy, you go be dirty on a small town stage and see how it goes, right? Like, there is an absolute skill set to every brand of comedy that comics make work. But I really, really loved how Brian Regan would craft a joke and how you would listen to it. And at the end of it, if someone was to say, hey, wasn't that clean? You would need to double think and be like, oh, I didn't even think about that. I was just enjoying laughing at his fun story. So Brian Regan's probably top of my list.
Okay, cool. Well, so mine, you mentioned the clean thing. I would have said forever Bill Cosby, but it turns out he's a
Right.
sexual
Now
predator.
we
So I
not
will
allowed to say
say
that anymore. Yes.
Jerry Seinfeld for that reason of that he was very funny and clean. And I've seen a
Mm-hmm.
lot of them live. I saw him here. But it's, by the way, reading the room, as you say, a small town stage. There's a singer, I don't know if you're a country music fan or not, but there was a Canadian country music singer by the name of Dean Brody. Came and played at Casino Regina, and I'm in the crowd. He comes out. Have you done shows in the Queen City,
I
Scott?
have, absolutely.
Okay. Okay. He comes out on the stage and goes, here's a song about smoking weed. The whole place.
We're
Yeah,
farmers.
this isn't the place.
Yeah.
This is not the town for that. Okay, so the guy that got you into comedy was him. How about, how would I say this? Mainstream? Like I'm thinking the Don Rickles, the Richard Pryor tops most
Mm-hmm.
lists. You know what I mean? It's a fascinating discussion, isn't it?
It really is. And I mean, I'm with you on Jerry Seinfeld. He was a huge influence on me. I loved the show Seinfeld, which is really kind of what got me into looking up stand-up comedy in general, searching it out. And I find both the show and Jerry incredibly funny. And then when it just comes to the Canadian scene, I think it really gets overlooked. There are so many, Rod, hilarious Canadian comics that are out there grinding it out in small towns, working the road, playing the clubs around the country, and they get very little limelight. They get very little people who are tuning into what they're doing. And it is incredible how many of them go to the US to pursue this, and automatically they get signed, they get put on stages.
Oh,
The American comedian, the comedy scene in the US truly does view Canadians as very, very funny, and they know when a Canadian moves to the US, they're probably already close to the top, right?
Dan Aykroyd, Jim Carrey, John Candy. I mean,
Yeah.
the list goes on and on and on. Rich in Edmonton writes in, he says, George Carlin and or Rodney Dangerfield. Brian in Regina says, Gallagher. So there's some old time names there. Scott, every time you come on, we have a blast and we run out of time. So the next time, will you come on and talk Expos with me? Yes or no? Does Montreal ever get a team? We got 20 seconds. Yes or no?
I'm a glass half full guy, so let's go yes.
Let's say yes. Okay, good stuff. Curtis Pride, former Expo friend of mine from South Florida, he believes that they will as well. Major League Baseball's first ever deaf player. Thank you, Scott. Scott
Hey,
Belford.
Rod, always a pleasure.
There you go. Scott Belford from the Walk Off Podcast, stand-up comic. We'll be right back with a sports update and viewer takeover the rest of the way here on Game Plus TV.